So we're going to do our presentation on this material right here. Okay? And it is using Bloom's taxonomy to explain this right here. We're already taking this class, so you guys already know a lot of what's in this book. But we're going to show you some different ways to look at the material that's in this book that might be beneficial for you. Sort of a perspective thing. There are a lot of ways to look at things in your daily lives. You can cruise through life, like my father-in-law says. Kind of do whatever, you know. Hey, yeah, you want to go fishing? Let's go fishing. You want to go to work today? Maybe I will, maybe I won't. That's cruising through life. And a lot of times we don't realize that we need to stop, take a moment, look at where we're at, and figure out where we're going to go. That requires some insight, some motivation, some reasoning, some reason to want to go forward. You can't go forward if you ain't got any reason to go forward, right? So, you guys have obviously made a reason for yourself. You're here in school, you want to go forward, you want to do better. I don't care if it's for money or if it's for enlightenment. Doesn't matter. You want to be here and you want to do better. Well, you could simply take all these books, you can read them. That's a lot of books. And we grazed over some of these books. Obviously, we didn't have enough time to read them all. We grazed over them. And we found that a lot of the principles that are in this book are in these books. So I don't know about you, but I would rather read this book half-inch thick than this stack of books right here in one course. Now, over the course of your education, you're probably going to dive into 4 times, 6 times as many books as what you see right here. But in one class, I think I'd like to distill it down to a little half-inch book. Okay? And that's basically where we're coming from. This is Hannah. I'm Alan. This is Alicia. We're going to do, our presentation is on the title.
The cross-domain of critical thinking as it relates to the moon and cheese.
Right. Why did we choose moon and cheese? Because we could relate critical thinking to discovering the moon or to the different kinds of cheese that are made in Wisconsin. It doesn't matter. You can think about critical thinking. You can evolve your critical thinking in such a way that you can make any one of those things pertinent. Why don't we mention cross-domains? Cross-domains are mentioned because on course, it brings to light cross-domain information. What is cross-domain information? It's when you speak from one subject to another subject, and sometimes, if you're lucky, you connect 3 or 4. You find that when you're in government and you learn about rational humanism, the discovery of rational thought as it relates to you and God, science, and the world, that you can also find that in science, you can find it in psychology. These are rational thoughts. You're able to connect the dots from history to your sciences to your life. That's cross-domain. And if you can't do that yet, it's okay. That's what the You Can't Be Pan is all about. Eventually, you will be Pan. Hey, right? Okay. So, what are some things that we need to talk about? Knowledge. So, when we're doing knowledge for Bloom's taxonomy, for this presentation, we notice, we recognize in that book there are dozens and dozens and dozens of things. All right? Obviously, the presentation is on Bloom's taxonomy, so maybe we should tell you what Bloom's taxonomy is. And I have a reference here that wasn't discussed in our book. Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom's was the author, right? But that leaves the word taxonomy. What is taxonomy? Anybody know what taxonomy is? I didn't know. I had to look it up. It's okay if you don't know. Taxonomy is the study of general principles of scientific classification. That means it looks at many principles, groups them together, and figures out a way to make them uniform and relate to one another, cross-domain relation. And that's what Bloom's taxonomy does. We got knowledge, understanding, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. But those things also relate to other subjects. All right? In our knowledge group, we explain that we're going to tell you about Bloom's taxonomy, stage theory, DAPS, and creator versus victim model. And if you will do me a favor, look up the page number for DAPS. Our first step, losing track here. Oh, our first step here is to list the things that we're going to do. That's knowledge. I have to basically, that part of the equation of Bloom's taxonomy isn't for you. Knowledge is for me, the person that's going to give you an understanding, the person that's going to convey their thoughts. Knowledge is what I have to have. All right? And rather than go over everything that's in this book, we pick favorite things. We're going to go on to the next subject, which is understanding, which is me explaining these things to you a little bit. If you'll kindly go over and play like Vanna White for me. We have knowledge, understanding, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. When you look at knowledge, it is the gathering of all your information. If I wanted to learn about the subject, I would pick up all these books and I'd take them home and I'd read them. That would be my knowledge base. It doesn't mean I understand it. It just means I've delved into it. Then, with understanding, I'm able to read it, put it together in my head, and say, you know what? I kind of think I better do that. But before I do that, I might want to take some of those ideas out of these books, or maybe this book. I want to apply them to my life. I want to experiment with my own life. You're the human experiment. You're the human element in science. Science would not exist if it wasn't for the human element. You guys would not have a future without some experimentation in life. It might be marijuana. It might be crack cocaine. That is definitely not a productive thing, is it? But if your experimentation involves knowledge and a thirst for knowledge, you as the scientist and a human in a scientific equation suddenly have a realization that knowledge can push you much further than means of living. So you want to apply those things. You want to experiment with your own life. Get down to analysis. You got theory. Relates to theory. Analysis is you want to take all the information you did, the experiments that you did with your life, your journaling. You know, you're communicating with other people in ways that involve expression of your understanding. You want to be able to take those things, you want to go out, and you want to be able to move forward. The way you do that is you take those experiments and the other information you gathered in your knowledge group, and you analyze it. And you think, okay, oh, this is good stuff. What am I going to do with this? How am I going to make my life better with this? Once you figure out how you think you're going to make your life better, then you can turn it into synthesis. You can develop something with it. In this case, we're going to use life. You can develop your life. You can create a better life. Synthesis is all about creation. We chose law because it relates to scientific method, which we'll get to in a little bit. Evaluation. Evaluate and evaluation. Sounds pretty similar. And why do we evaluate? The reason why we evaluate is because if you're a Tommy and you decide that the moon is made out of cheese because you saw in a cartoon, you're going to get a cardboard rocket, you're going to take on off, what's going to happen? You're going to end up with a very disappointed 5-year-old. Why? Because A, he can't build a rocket out of cardboard, and B, the moon isn't made out of cheese. But his source information came from a cartoon. Bad source, bad knowledge. You got to have good knowledge. You got to obtain good knowledge. You can't go to a wiki on the internet and take that as your foundation for your presentation. Because the wiki is wrote by a lot of people. People make mistakes. All right? And it's not recognized by the Education Association. Okay, so it doesn't do you any good in class. Your teacher isn't going to take any accreditation. Then neither should you, because I could join Wiki and go on there and say the moon is made out of cheese, and until somebody corrects it, that's what it's going to say. And if you believe wholeheartedly that the moon is made out of cheese because you read it on Wiki, then you're going to get an F in science. Astronomy. So you got to make sure your knowledge is good. Now we're going to move on to the next stage. Application. This is the fun part here. This is where we're going to get volunteers. You want to volunteer?
I'll volunteer.
Okay, you can volunteer. Who else wants to volunteer? Okay, come on up. All right. You'll volunteer? Or just give us a second. We'll get to you, okay? We're going to start with our DAPs. Oh, what page number was DAPs on?
It was on 74.
73. DAPs. What is DAPs? It's goal setting, right? If you don't set reasonable goals, you end up with failure. You need to date your goal. You need to make sure that goal is achievable, something you can actually accomplish. You need to make sure that it's personal, something that means something to you. Otherwise, you lack motivation to complete it. You need to make it positive. Find out the positive spin, the positive outcomes, the things that are going to happen when you're doing these things. And you need to be specific. You don't need to say, well, you know, I think I'll eventually get me a mansion. Eventually. All right, you don't know how you're going to get the mansion. You don't know how you get the money to get the mansion. You know how to get the car to go get the money to get the mansion. Wait, the car to go get the job to go get the money to go get the mansion. You see, it all links. Without those links and associations, you're just left behind. So DAPS is a good way to set reasonable goals. And here we're going to show a good example of DAPS in progress. You two have 10 seconds to achieve the goals that I give you. You guys aren't choosing your own personal goals. We're giving you goals today. Those goals are going to be rather simple. First of all, I want you to move this chair in front of the class. I want you, hold it. I want you to move that wall. You got 10 seconds? Go. 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, 5 1,000, 6 1,000, 7. Bam! She did it. You're still over there pushing. What's going on? How come you didn't move the wall? You couldn't do it. You victim. No, why did she, you notice though, this is important. She took the victim role, right? Were you able to move the chair? She used her deductive reasoning and said, it's got wheels. No, you have to pick it up, I'll just push it. She used the creator role. And this touches on reasonable expectation. If it's not achievable, then you can't strive to reach it because you didn't set a reasonable expectation. She went to the wall and pushed it and went, man, I can't move it. Why? Because it's attached to the other walls of the floor and the ceiling. And it wasn't possible with the given tools she had. You got a sledgehammer. That worked. Maybe doors. Oh, you know. But without those, she can't move the wall. So DAPS is something, by the way, thank you for participating. You want Dr. Pepper or Mountain Dew? Mountain Dew? You like Milky Way?
Is that a motivation or what? We're going to have a lot of volunteers now.
Thank you.
There you go. Thank you for coming up. You guys can see. You have it. That is okay. You're just fine. All right. Now, we're moving on to the next one, which is, just give me one. I got to check my cheat sheet here. That's, motivation. B times E equals M. What does that stand for? Value times expectation equals motivation. We need 2 volunteers. Seriously? Hey, come on up, Greg. All right. I'm giving away candy and soda. I can't get a volunteer. You come up. You're tagged. You're in. Come on. Come on. I'll come take you by the hand. We'll walk out on the dance floor together.
It's okay.
Okay. All right. I want you to stand right here. And I want you to stick your hands out in front of you. Nope, palms up. Palms up. I'll show you. Like this. Put your hands close together. Hold that. Now you come out here. Put your hands together. Out in front of you. Out in front of you. Just like that. Those are heavy, aren't they? Here, he's got a bigger book than you do. Let's do this. All right, now I need 2 more volunteers quickly. Come on, you're holding a lot of weight there, guys. Come on. All right, hold your hands out there. All right, right now she's unsupported. She's dealing with the motivation of her life in an unsupported manner. Here, let's move this. Just kind of hold up that arm. You, come on, Michael. Hold the other arm up for her. Hold her arm. No, not his. All right. Now, what do we have here? We have this guy over here trying to hold up this book. And it ain't easy when you hold your hands out. It's just a little bit of weight when you're a big person. But when you have the value and the expectation to back you up, it's not so heavy anymore, is it? Value and expectation are the foundation for your personal goals and achievements because it directly relates to your motivation. You don't have a solid value of what it is you want to accomplish and a reasonable expectation of what it is you want to accomplish. The lightest burden, the lightest weights can be a huge burden for you. You guys, you want Dr. Pepper? Okay. You want Dr. Pepper? No?
I get the spark to carry on.
Okay. Now, moving on, we have one more final drill. This is the stage theory. All right, what is stage theory? What's stage theory? Anybody know? Come on. I'll give you an extra piece of candy if you know what stage theory is. I've already mentioned it once in the class. Right there. What is it?
You can be Pan.
Thank you. All right. You can be Pan. It stands for unreflective, challenged, beginner, practicing, advanced, and master. All right? You too can be a master. We have some things up here that kind of represent the phases and stages of stage theory. All right? I need 6 volunteers. Come on up, Michael. You haven't done anything yet. You both. Come on up. Jorge. Yeah. And your little girlfriend is hiding behind your head over there. And the one behind her. That'll work. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and bam, you're at next. 6. Okay, just form a line behind Michael here. Okay.
I grabbed the top of it.
On course. All right, up here we have some simple tools. We got a hammer. We got a rock. We have the necessary nails and screws to fasten 2 boards forward. We got a bag of flour. How does that pertain to anything? We'll get to in a second. And I have a screwdriver. These represent different phases of the stage theory. All right, now I'm going to give you. All right, Michael, here's your hand. All right. I'm going to take away all these tools. Okay. I want you to put that nail on those 2 boards. I want you to sink it all the way up. Can you do that for me? Right? Well, if we're talking about stage theory, what do you think he would be? You guys know? What is Michael? He doesn't have any tools, man.
Improvising.
Right? Unreflective. Why is he unreflective? Because he doesn't have any tools. Why does he have any tools to use? That's all right. That's cool. Dad is taking the creator role. Give me a high five. Right. So why is he the unreflective person? Because he doesn't have any tools. Why doesn't he have any tools? Because he didn't think the brain. Why? Because the unreflective people don't think. They don't think the thing. Okay? Next, we're going to mix this up a little bit. We're going to give you a rock. No, we're going to keep this in order so we don't confuse anybody. All right? There's yours. Don't rupture that flower. I'll have it back. I don't want to see flour all over the floor. All right, go ahead. I want you to drive that nail up with that bag of flour. You think that's going to work? Who here thinks a bag of flour is a good tool for driving a nail? No? All right, but notice, he does have a tool. It's the wrong tool, but he's got one. And that's a challenge thinker. He's starting to realize, I need a tool of some sort. He just has, maybe his mom and dad didn't teach him very well how to be a critical thinker. Or maybe he was a latchkey kid. I kind of was. All right? You just never had that guidance that you needed to become that critical thinker. You never invested yourself in school because you have plenty of examples of critical thinkers in school, in high school. You got plenty of those. Your teachers are critical thinkers, otherwise they wouldn't be your teachers. Some of them are better than others. You didn't have the right tools. Challenge. All right, what comes next in the stage theory? Beginner. All right. Well, a beginner is someone who's starting to get an idea that they need the right tool. So we're going to supplement this as a stick. Okay? Don't use this thing. This is not for you. You, sir, are a beginner. This is not for you. This is for you. All right? I want you to go ahead and reasonably try to grab the nail. Go ahead. All right, it's starting to work. It's slow. Then you just turn it flat, please. There you go. Really whack at it. See, it's going in. But it doesn't take forever. It's a slow process, right? So, obviously, the stick was a better tool than maybe the flour, but it still wasn't a good tool. You can have a seat. I'll let you guys can in the soda in a minute. Next. Practicing. Now she's getting this thing over here's getting to the clue. She's got the clue. She's decided that she needs something better than a rubbery stick. She needs something hard and solid and got some weight to it. To bash something in there. She's a caveman. And they're beating the deer that she got, trying to crush its skull so she can get to the marrow and the brain. Gross, right? All right, I want you to drive that nail in. Be careful not to squash your finger with that nail. A little harder. There you go. Man, it's going in. It's going in. Go, 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 go. Go all the way, all the way. You can do it. There you go. All right. Now, that's all right. We got a bent nail. Now, a bent nail can happen with a hammer too, but it's more likely to happen with a rock, because a rock isn't designed to strike a nail. But it worked to get the nail in the board. Give me a high five. Let's practice. Okay. And last but not least, Mr. Man, I'm going to let the young lady. Yeah, I'm going to let you. I don't know how much hammering you've done. You want? You done much? And drive that on. Really walk. That's what hammer's for. You know, walk over for a little walk. Hey. Hey. There you go. All the way. I used some critical thinking to make sure I didn't get the nail too long.
I was just worried about.
All right. Next, we're going to move to the master. What is awesome about being a master is you don't have to stick to the same rules as everybody else. Because you think so far outside the box that you come up with other ways to do things. And they're productive ways. They're good ways. You are a master. And as a master, you decided that a nail is good. You got it? Hey, go for it.
She's a master, we don't have that.
We're using interdependence.
You don't got it.
There you go.
I got it in.
All right, give me back. All right, now notice we use some interdependence there. We discussed this in class. It isn't really on our subject, but I'm going to mention it. We use interdependence. She is a master. Oh my God! I guess I didn't critically think that was quite the one. She's a master. All right, and as a master, she knew that okay, things were going well. Instead of saying no, I got this. After she already realized she had a problem, she said, okay, yeah, help me. She let me help her. That's what a master would do. That's good use. Interdependence. Sharing a relationship to get to an achievable goal together. Okay? All right, that's our stage theory. Stage theory, I'm sorry. Right now, we are in our application. We just did some experiments. This relates to scientific method, which we're about to get to. But now we just discussed stage theory, so I want to get into this. And since this is actually your article, you know a bit more about that than I do, that I get a chance to study. I want you to explain the correlation between these.
Okay, so stage theory, as we talked about, is the advancement of the thinking or the way of thinking. And so I found a related topic called the stages of change, which is normally used for recovering alcoholics or people who are on drugs and that kind of stuff. These are the stages that they go through in recovering from doing such habits. And so it would be the pre-contemplation, which goes with unreflective, meaning they haven't even thought about stopping or changing their ways. And the contemplation, which means they now realize that something is wrong. The preparation, which means they're ready to change, they're thinking about changing. The action, actually taking the first step into changing their ways. And then once they recover and all, the maintenance and the relapse prevention, so they don't fall back into the same cycle and upkeeping all that they've changed in that process.
What I like about this is that all three of these could be covered in action. They better define it in the master area. Because when you're a master, you're constantly reevaluating yourself and constantly trying to get yourself better. Even though you're a master. You don't see the 90-year-old man just sitting around going, yeah, I'm a kung fu master, I don't need to study no more. No, the man's 90 years old and wants a field of warriors because he kept checking himself. But these are action. That means you got to do something. That's stand up and go after it. Let's take the world by the horns and do your thing. That's action. All these other stages are just getting you ready to get to here. Nobody wants to be lagging behind in the race. If you seriously and honestly want that six-figure job or that $1 million job, or you really want to be Donald Trump, you can't live your life here because you're not accomplishing anything. You got to be a man of action, a woman of action. Okay. We're going to move on to something. This is how this whole discussion kind of got started. Scientific method. I got to thinking when I was reading a book on my own because I want to be a physicist. Well, I'm not ready for physics class yet, but I went and got a book from Half Price Bookstore called Introduction to Physical Science. Introduction to Physical Sciences incorporates all the things of physical science, which is astronomy, geology, meteorology. There's 6 of them. I'm sorry if I've forgotten them. It's six different fields of study, and they all make up the physical sciences. Chemistry is among them. And so I thought, well, I'm going to read this book and kind of get a touch on each of those things because those are going to be important for me later. And while I can't take those classes now, I'm going to collect my information. I'm going to rehearse my information. I'm going to evaluate the information I get. All right? Collect, organize, rehearse, and evaluate. That's the core system in the book. And I was using the core system for myself by going in and doing these things. Admittedly, at the time, I didn't realize I was using the core system because we hadn't gotten to that point. But I was. And you can take, when I was going through this book, I found scientific method. How does scientific method relate to that? Well, in order for a scientist to go and make something a law, instead of saying the moon is cheese and getting away with it, he has to prove it to a group of his peers. But before he does that, he's got to go through steps. He's got to make observations and measurements. Observations and measurements. It's not any different than your life. You got to observe the patterns in your life. You got to quantify the outcomes. You got to decide, kicking this rock the size of a boulder, is that helping me? No, it's hurting my toe. You gotta quantify what it is you're doing and decide if you can do something better. Understanding. Hypothesis. It's grabbing that thing that you learned, kicking the rock, going, maybe I should kick the can, it would be easier. You know? It's making a hypothesis, an idea. It's coming up with something from your knowledge, putting it together in a uniform way that starts giving you that light bulb. You know? But you haven't quite wrapped it all up in a neat package yet. That's why you got to do some experiments. That little kid found out the hard way when he tried to build his paper rocket to go to the moon and defend it from the intergalactic rats who are eating cheese. He found out the hard way that he had to experiment with everything to know that, hey, cardboard can't be used. All right? But let's take it another way. You experiment with your life and you find a reasonable outcome, you'll find inevitably, that's what experiments are for, you're going to find failure. Don't think you won't find failure, because it's going to happen. Instead of taking the victim role at that point, going, oh, dear me, find a way out of it. Somebody sticks you in a box, bash that box to pieces if you have to. Get yourself out of the box. That's where you should live, outside the box. You keep the box close by. Why? Because that box is your source of information. Where everybody else lives, all the other, as a for instance, if I want to be a physicist, there's scientists that are here. They have a box of knowledge right here that I want to look out there. All right? I want to be the guy that's a theoretical scientist that's coming with new ideas. That's me. That's what I want to do. So I keep that box close by so every now I can dip in and go, yeah, that makes sense now. Okay. I'm going to go do some more observations and measurements. So I got to experiment. You need to experiment with your life, and you'll be surprised that even though you run into failure, you're going to have a lot of success. And so success is the drive you on even further. And once you have those experiments, you haven't decided if you're success or failure yet. You just made the experiments. You conducted them. Then you got to go into theory. Theory is the same as analysis in Bloom's taxonomy. Theory is where you take the experiments, you wrap it up in a bundle, and you say, okay, that makes sense now. This stuff was hard. This was easy. All right. Then you go to synthesis, which is law. Okay? There, if you look in your front of your book there, you have a little pie chart. And under those pie charts, it tells you an action, and then underneath that, it gives you something you can create with it, something that comes from that. And under synthesis, it gives you several things, one of which was law. And I liked it because it related really well to scientific theory. And so we came up with a few laws of our own. All right? The laws of synthesis. Okay? Our first law is that thou shalt not move walls without thou largest hammer. All right? You created a law. You know you can't move that wall without some sort of tool. There's your law. Came with the rule. All right? Next one. Thou shalt not fasten two planks with flour. We know that's not going to work, right? It's a good law. We know that's probably not going to work. And thou shalt not be a victim, lest thou art murdered. All right? Don't be a victim. Be creative. You're not dead yet. Keep living. Okay. And a last evaluation. Not the least important. Notice it's on the top of the pyramid. If you think of it like an archway, let me have a dry erase. If you think of it like an archway, when you build an arch, you have something that goes in the middle. It's called a keystone. It might be at the very top, but it's the most important block in the entire arch. It holds all of it together. Why? Because if you're evaluating your life and you're going over the things that you're doing in your life, then you can decide if you made the right choices, if you got that good knowledge. Did you watch a cartoon? Or did you study a textbook? Did you understand the information you got? Even though you got good source information, you took good measurements and observations. If you don't understand it, you can't explain it. Even to yourself, much less to others, then maybe there's something wrong. Evaluation is all about going over each of these steps and making sure you hit them with the right tool. You use the hammer instead of a bag of flour with your life. All right? You hit each one of those spots with the right tool. That's what evaluation is about. It's the keystone to your philosophy. So, in conclusion, the cross domains of critical thinking as it relates to moving cheese. You guys can do anything you want to. You can be anyone you want to. Your parents said it when you were kids, right? I don't mind it. My parents said, hey, you can be anything you want to. No one ever told you what to be. Or maybe they did. They said, you're going to be a construction worker. Why? Because Mexican men, they can't get jobs in this country. Your family said, you're going to be a piano maker. Why? Because that's what we do. My family told me I was going to be a drywall. I did. I blew up my knees, tore my shoulders, got bad hips. And it worked for a while. But it didn't. Hurt, broke, laid off. I'm watching my kids do it without. Watching my wife suffer. She can't get help for how she would wish. A lot of you guys don't have kids right now. You don't have families, you don't have lives. Except the lives you pay for yourself, you go to friends. You have school. A lot of you are right out of high school. Be the critical thinker. Don't shun the course. It seems like a lot of fancy terms for some stuff that, as my wife puts it, is common sense. A lot of things that don't really matter. But in order for all these ideas to come together, someone had to study all that. And what they did is they made your life a little simpler. They put it in an order. It's easy. It is. And now analyzed. They took all this information and they analyzed it. They organized it. They made it so that everything comes together for you. We don't have to dig in different places to get those resources. Yeah, the terms are a little funky. You know, unreflective, what is that? Think of it like a mirror. The word association. Whatever you have to do to keep those terms in your head. But eventually, you'll move beyond the terminology and you'll get into the philosophy of what it is. That's what this book is about. Philosophy. Eventually, you get into philosophy of it. For now, learn. Do it. Use them. You know, I'm a bit of a hypocrite. I haven't turned in most of my journals. And I still got to do them, even if I don't get credit for them. And I'm working on them. So you know, I'm working on them. I'm going to turn them all in one package. I'm not getting credit, I'm not going to turn them all in. But gotta, even if you don't do everything, if you remember the simple principle that life can be better with a little self-reflection, a little motivation, some good goals like DAPS, some good values and expectations for yourself, you're going to find that your life is a lot easier. Okay? Thank you guys. Who didn't get a soda? Who wants a soda? Want a soda?
I'll take one.
Okay.
Do we want any more chocolate?
I got Mountain Dew as well. Anybody want Mountain Dew? You're welcome to it. You want it? I'll just sit
I'll
right
get
here.
it.
Bland. Would you like a drink? Have you guys don't drink soda? That's not actually a bad thing. Oh, can I discuss this with last meeting? This was a book when I was going to do find some research material. This is an yeah, I was looking for research material for this, and so I went to Half Price Bookstore and I bought a few books. I really did skim over most of those books, but I found this. It's called the intelligence equation. 100 factors they can add or add to or subtract from your brain power. Now, I haven't really had time because I've been working on this, but I have perused the book a little bit. And it gives you some examples.
It's enticing.
It is. It gives you some examples. Are you breastfeeding? Because that's worth 2 points to you.
You mean,
How about,
You mean were you breastfed?
yeah, breastfed or did you breastfeed?
no, I asked you.
Were you a feeder or were you fed?
Yeah, that's
Sorry, I'm
two
sorry.
different things.
Breastfeeding.
So did you feed?
Yeah,
Did
did
you
you
breast-
feed? Did you eat off your
Okay.
Okay.
Were you breastfed is the right term now.
Were you? There you go. Hey. I'm in college, I'm working on it. All right, sunshine. Getting outside. That's worth a point.
Wow.
All right? That's a
Can
point
you guys
to
like
you.
the best presentation?
Diabetes. Hey, you guys should probably try to stop eating candy. Apparently, if you get diabetes, it's minus 1.3. He said, I'll work on that later.
In the back.
Eating regular meals, worth 1 point. High blood pressure, minus 1 point. High blood pressure is generally due to clogged arteries. Generally, it's too much fat in your body. Then that gets compounded by stress, by overexerting your body because maybe you're not fit enough, but you're going to exercise, you decide you're going to go outside and leave the house.
It's the pressure on the heart.
Sure. I haven't ever been exposed to disorder. Basically means I'm calm until I'm not. That's basically what it means. I'm calm until I'm not. And then when I decide not to be, it's like, that's everything exposed to disorder. Okay? I'm calm until I'm not. Brain training. That's what you guys are doing now. But there's more than that, actually. You could do like crossword puzzles, or you could do Sudoku puzzles, or you could play Tetris a lot. Tetris is actually really good for your brain. Teaches you spatial recognition. So brain training, worth 2 points. Playing computer games. 0.5 points. It's actually opponents. How much? 0.5.
I don't think you
Dancing.
just play mahjong every day.
Dancing. Okay. Let's
Did you
see.
hear me? I don't want to get judged for playing mahjong in here.
Okay.
Smart.
Huh? Actually, I don't know exactly where that is in here. There we go. There's marijuana. minus 1 point.
It adds up.
I'll fix everything else up, but marijuana.
Every time you use it.
Oh, it's every time you use it. I don't know. Smoking, let's look at it.
Yeah.
All right, we got a few seconds.
Thinking about
Smoking marijuana or cannabis interferes with the harmonious working of the brain, dulling the areas responsible for short-term memory and attention. Cannabis can also be a negative have a negative impact on IQ. In one study, heavy smokers experienced a decline in their IQ scores of 4 points in the course of a decade. Interestingly, it looks as though those who have the least to lose IQ-wise tend to do worse. So if you're already having problems reasoning and deducing things, all right, let me put it this way. Let me do this. If you have 140 IQ, you might be able to spare a couple points over a decade. All right. But if you're already challenged in life, why would you hamper yourself even further by smoking? Because that makes it even worse. Especially if you live in a haze. All right, I'm not going to lie, because I have my fair share of plenty of recreation. All right? And it does hamper you. I've done acid. Acid, ironically, I did acid and I thought, all my friends were telling me, dude, it'll make you weird. And I don't care, I just wanted to try something. I tried it, and all of a sudden I was like, wow, you're right, man. It really does make you aware. I'll admit, I gained new perceptions. That's probably one of the reasons why I'm a critical thinker today. But listen, what I recognize is that it did more damage to me than benefit. There are ways to become a critical thinker. I don't have the books, my wife's not good, but it's the on-course book is one way.
It's figured out trying to come out.
It's okay. There are ways to become a critical thinker. And marijuana and drug use, acid. Thank you guys. You did this to have fun. You just want to have fun with your friends. So after I left, I started to turn around and go back and get some for like door prizes. I wasn't sure if you guys would actually appreciate it or not. So I will tell you about it. But you can get it at Half Price Bookstore over there in the city by College. And it's like $3, man. It's a real fun little book. You guys have a good day.
Thank you.